Hi, I'm Troy Vincent. I'm with Bare Naked Barbecue out of Palmer, Alaska. I'm down here for the Sam's Club event in Las Vegas. And let's just say it's extremely warm for me today. Starting to melt here. But new to barbecue. This is my 5th event. It would be my 2nd KCBS, or is that right? Yeah, there we go. I got it. I did the Lake Havasu earlier this year. Gets a little spendy traveling out of Alaska to come down here for these events, so I only do about 2 a year. And we do have a little association up in Alaska, and I compete in those as well. I think I've picked the wrong hobby to have in Alaska. It's kind of like a tarpon fisherman out of Oklahoma City. It just doesn't work. So hopefully one of these days I'll move to the Kansas City area, and then maybe I'll be able to get my game on a little better. Basically, I use pellet poopers. I'm using the Green Mountain Grill. I'm a dealer up there. I got a small business called Alaska Barbecue Supply, and I sell these grills, and so I ship them down here to myself and ship my supplies, and baggage fees, or airlines love me. And but yeah, no, this is a fun little hobby. I enjoy it, and hopefully we'll do pretty good today. I'm just a one-man show, and it makes it a little difficult on turn-in time.
Use your own rubs and sauces?
I make my own rub. I don't make my own sauce. I got a lady that makes it out of Gertwood. It's back if you want to see it. It's called Sweet and Spicy Umami sauce. I mix that in with a barbecue sauce, and it gives it a nice little glaze. That's one of the things not being able to judge down here. I don't have a flavor profile yet, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with placing in the upper echelons. I don't know if it needs to be sweet or hot, but I just do what I do and have fun, and let the chips fall where they fall.
Website?
AlaskaBarbecueSupply.com. Haven't updated it in 6 months, but I plan on this summer updating it a little bit. Hey, you're welcome to come up. We have the 3rd week of July is our state barbecue championship, and it's in Fairbanks. And if you think you got it and want to come up there and have a vacation at the same time of barbecuing, I think it'd be a great event. If you're real good, should be an easy win to get the Jack, because it's a sanctioned event. We have our own little sanction body up there, so it's a Jack qualifier, I guess. But yeah, overall, it's a fun little hobby. I just wish I lived in a different location.
Hi, my name's Jason Fosna. I'm the tour manager of the KC Masterpiece Pit Wagon. This pit wagon travels across the country following the Sam's Club barbecue tour. Barbecue tour where competitors come out, cook up their favorite barbecue, have judges judge that. During that competition, we have usually 3 to 5 sampling tents, and KC Masterpiece Pit Wagon is one of those tents. We've got pork tenderloins, these sliders, with spicy dill pickle chips that we make up ourselves. And we also have a 3-bean salad. It's a Del Monte bean with green beans, garbanzo beans, and red kidney beans. We have recipe cards that we give out to everybody. They come up here, sample up our food. And as we're traveling across the country, teach a little bit about barbecue. My coworker Sean here, he can discuss a little bit about that, or how many stops we're doing across the way. Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. One of the things that not to forget, that we're going to be in approximately 28 cities across the United States. So we started in Nashville, Tucson, over to the West Coast, then we're going to the southeast, and then on the East Coast, and then to the Midwest. So the trailer's going to get a lot of miles on it, and a lot of folks are going to be able to see it and enjoy the food that we're preparing for them and the samples. And we hope that anybody that is able to see this can come out and see us and check us out and find out what location we're going to be at. And that way you can find out some of our recipes. We have recipe cards. We're doing pork tenderloin sliders, and those are real nice. They've been real popular, and we're looking forward to our trip.
Website for the location? Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Grilling.com.
Website is kcmasterpiece.com, and you can also find information on grilling.com. And what was the other?
At 205, you'll be able to slice this brisket against the grain, about a pencil width, and be able to gently tug on it and it pull apart. It's going to be moist, it's going to be flavorful. Anything beyond 205, it's going to be a little mushy, maybe a little dry. Before that, it's going to be very rubbery, and it's not going to pull apart. So, any questions on brisket? All right, let's move on to the Boston butt. All right, the Boston butt is not part of the hind end of the hog. Okay, the Boston butt is the butt end of the shoulder. It's part of the whole shoulder up here. The other piece of it that they connect to this is called the picnic shoulder, sometimes available in grocery stores. Here in the club, these things are sold in 2-packs, cryovacs like this. Just like the brisket, I don't do any trimming on this. Take it out of the pack, dry it off. There's 2 of these in here. I dust it with my dry rub, get my cooker ready at 250, and I cook this for how many hours?
Till it's done.
Till it's done, yes, you're listening. I'm looking for a different temperature on the pork though. 190 degrees on the pork. Let me show you what it should look like. There's one in there. Fantastic. Thanks, Sean.
Nice board.
All right, let me get a cutting board out here. I'm going to pull this out. Yeah, please. That's my butt load. Okay, that's supposed to be a joke. Come on, give me a laugh out of that one. Yeah. There's a lot of jokes around barbecue, I know. So at 190 degrees, I pulled this off. And this is one of the ways you know that this is done. If that bone pulls clean out of that meat just like that.
How many hours?
How many hours? I don't even know. It's till it reaches 190 degrees. It's never about time. Ever about time. Now, 10 to 12, this took. Tomorrow, it may take less than that, it may take more, but it's always about that 190 degree
What temp
temperature.
did you cook it at, Troy?
250 degrees, if you were listening. Were you? Were you listening?
No, I'm not listening.
Okay.
Got a ringer.
Friend of mine from the South.
Got a ringer.
I know, got a ringer, I know.
I accept my duty to be a Sam's Club barbecue judge. Show the truth, justice, excellence in barbecue, and the American way of life may be strengthened and preserved forever. Hey, thank you. Grab your bag.
All right, I believe number 3 was my favorite. It had a real good mellow taste to it, but then came up with a little spice afterwards, which was real nice. It's real sweet, and then came up nice and spicy. As far as being the least favorite, I would probably have to say that was between 4 and 5. They're both about the same. The taste wasn't outstanding like the other 3 that I seen in there. It was kind of a little bit bland, and then also the skin didn't seem like it was very cooked. There wasn't enough flavor in there for me. That's about it.
Okay. Oh, sliced.
What do you want to know?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which is your favorite, least favorite, and why?
Well, actually, least favorite was between 1 and 5. Number 1 had all the characteristics of being an excellent one. It's just that it had too much smoke in it. It had more of a creosote taste to it. Number 5 being the smallest, the driest, and the least sauced. If I was to say my favorite, it would have to be number 4. It had all the combinations. It had a little sauce. It had a crispy skin. It was tender, and the size was right.
Well, I had some really good chicken. I think first, number 1 and number 4 were both really good. My least favorite was actually number 3. Number 1 and 4 were just about perfect, and number 3 was a little overdone.
I think my favorite was probably a tie between number 2 and number 3. They each had different flavors that I really liked. I liked the presentation of number 4 the best, but was kind of disappointed by the taste. It didn't live up to what it looked like, and I thought number 5 was a little bland for my taste.
My favorite was number 1. It had nice flavor, good bite through skin. Number 2 and 3 were a close second. My least favorite was number 4, primarily because the skin was quite rubbery. It was nice and moist, but unfortunately they didn't get the skin done. And number 5 was somewhat bland for me. But number 1 I thought was pretty good chicken.
I liked all of them, to be honest. I thought they were all superb. My favorite was one had a very good honey taste. I really like that. Some of the other ones were a little spicy, like 2 and 3 were a little spicy, but they were overall I think that they were all very tasteful and very well done, all of them. Thank you.
Okay, rib 1 had a very nice appearance, but the sauce was a little globby. Had a great texture to it, but just really nothing distinctive to its flavor. Rib 2 was an excellent appearance, a little too chewy on it, but had a very solid flavor profile, a nice mix of sweet and spice. Rib number 3 just wasn't very meaty. A lot of bone and not much meat to it, and as a result came out pretty dry. Had great appearance though. And rib number 4 had excellent moisture and a good mix of heat and sweet. Had a funny aftertaste, which took away from it, but otherwise solid rib.
Rib number 1 overall was wonderful, except for I tasted a little teeny hint of metal, as if it was like canned pineapple juice or something like that was in the thing. For some reason I was just getting a metal aftertaste. Rib number 2, I tasted petroleum, so like lighter fluid or all the different things that could cause that taste to appear. That's what I was tasting, was a lighter fluid or a after taste. Rib number 3 was dry. Looked nice, good texture, but it was just a dry rib. Rib number 4 was juicy and hot. That might have been one of my favorite ribs of the 4, but there was a little bit too much spice or pepper to my liking. That was it.
Rib number 1, I found a little dry. It didn't really have a whole lot of flavor. I had a problem actually just tasting anything coming out of it. Rib number 2 was probably the best for tenderness out of the 4 that I tried. There was, again, just some little aftertaste. I can't put my finger on it. Rib number 3 was probably the best appearance that I'd seen out of all 4 boxes. Unfortunately, the ribs were thin and they were a little dry. Rib number 4 had the best flavor profile, had the juiciest, but unfortunately my rib was slightly overcooked.
Rib number 1 I felt was a little dry. It was very good in appearance. 2, again, a little dry. Appearance was very nice though. Flavor not bad. Rib number 3, not much meat and dry. And rib number 4 was absolutely my favorite. It had juiciness and I liked the spice.
Rib number 1 was just okay. Mine was a little dry. Appearance was okay. Rib number 2 had a great appearance. Flavor was okay. It was a little overcooked. Presentation was good. Rib number 3 had a great presentation. Not enough meat on the bone, and I've got some bone chips on what I ate off of it. Rib number 4 excellent presentation, flavor good, meaty, juicy.
All right, rib number 1. Mine, I think, could have done a little bit more cooking. I couldn't really get a good piece to come off. Number 2, mine had an awful lot of bone to it. You know, it was hard to like find a meat to taste. What I did taste was good. Number 3, it hardly had any meat, and what I did taste was I found to be dry. And number 4, I enjoyed the the flavor. For texture wise, it fell right off the bone.
Being inside.
Oh, it was like 22. We were in the 20s. Yeah, I know. It was like 22, I think. So, yeah, we were 10B, B, whatever Nellis could bring. Yeah. It was nice.
Actually, you got plenty of them.
You think I got enough?
Oh, we might have the top. It won't matter on this one.
It is pretty soft.
It doesn't matter on this one? It
Yeah,
won't matter on this one.
we're not going to screw the look of this one up.
Oh, that's pretty.
Let's just try to get it even. My eye with a stick to stay away.
If you get him to play cards, you come call me and tell me.
Entry number 3 was my favorite. Definitely had a very nice moisture level, nice flavor. And there was a mix of pulled pork and slices in the box, and both were very good. I think my least favorite was probably entry number 5. It was a little bit dry, had very little flavor. There were a couple of different types of pork in there. There were some pieces that were nice and moist, but overall it was a little bit dry. Entry number 4 was an interesting one because that was 2 different types of pork in the box. The slices were nice and moist, but the pulled pork was fairly dry. So that they kind of hurt themselves by putting 2 different types of pork in the box.
I think about the same thing. My favorite was number 3, and I had a little better experience with number 5. Mine was quite tasty, so I was about the same thing as Ron.
Yeah, thank goodness. I think I have the same opinion. Number 3 was my favorite. I thought it was very tender and the flavor was great. Other people, I guess, were more fortunate with number 5. I thought it was extremely dry. I didn't have a tender piece. I think number 2 had an interesting flavor, and I kind of liked it, but overall, number 3 was my favorite.
I like number 2 the best. The sliced pork was very, very, very moist all the way through. Had a great char around the edge. The pulled pork itself I thought was pretty moist all the way through as well. Number 1 was very, very peppery to me, at least the part that I got, and number 5 was very dry, so I didn't like either of those, but number 2, I really enjoyed the sliced pork and the pulled pork.
Yes, pork is always interesting because you have a variety. You have pulled and sliced and burn ends, and so it makes it interesting. I think I concur with everybody else that number 3 was by far the tenderest and the most moist. Number 5 was awfully dry. It looked dry in its appearance. I had to mark it down because it looked dry, and it was dry when I tasted it. So, and the rest were good, but and moist and tender. But number 3 had the best of all.
I'm a little different in some lines. I enjoyed number 5 because it was actually the most tender of the bunch for me. I thought all of them were above average, and all of them had quality taste and texture and appearance. One of them did appear to be a little bit more dry, but when you tried it, it was much more tender and had a sweet smoke to it. The table here has a Midwest influence that now sort of gravitated west, and they're interesting people to be here, and it's been a good group. Thank you.
Wrong with it.
Number 1, that was my second choice. That was very tender, very moist. This was my number 1 choice. This was excellent flavor, excellent moisture, excellent taste. This was the third favorite. It was a little bit drier. This was the fourth favorite, a little dry, and this was the fifth favorite. Good taste overall, but it was just a little dry.
Oh, I don't know that I'm going to be able to go through all this.
Which was your favorite?
This one.
Which one's that?
Number 1.
Number 1.
Number 1.
Because?
Because it had good flavor. It had a nice pull. Looked good.
Okay, which was your least favorite and why?
Least favorite was probably the number 4. It was, well, this one had the tenderness. Actually, it was probably this one. Just couldn't pull it. I don't know what kind of flavor they were going for with it. I couldn't taste the meat. This one was very good. It was very tender. And this one was tough, I think. Oh, that one's tender too. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
I just remember I like that one best. Number 1.
1 and 2 had the best flavor, the most tenderness, and just seemed to have moisture that the others lacked. 3 and 4 were clearly too dry and weren't nearly as tender. And the 5th one was somewhere in between, but not as good as 1 and 2. Didn't have one single favorite, 1 and 2, either one of them.
Overall, very good. I would say number 1 was my favorite. It was moist, it was good flavor and pulled apart well. Number 4 was relatively tough and dry.
Number 1 was my favorite. It had nice flavor. It's very moist, and it had nice texture. Number 2, the number 2 was also very good. It had good texture and taste. Number 3 was very chewy, and it was dry, kind of a bland flavor. Number 4 was very dry and not much flavor to it. And number 5 was tough, but it did have good flavor.
I found number 1 to be very moist and very tender. Number 2 was very delicious, pulled apart very easily, had good flavor. 3 and 4 for me were both a little bit on the dry side, had a really hard time pulling them apart. And number 5 I found to be very dry with not a lot of flavor. Overall, the scores were very comparative amongst all 5 of them, really separating within 1 or 2.